On Wednesday, the 29th of August, Pisces 3 and its 2 pilots plunged to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean in an accident that could have been avoided. The accident sparks a 76-hour international rescue operation. Pisces 3 is built by International Hydrodynamic of North Vancouver, British Columbia, and launched in 1969. The Canadian commercial submersible vessel measures 6 meters long, 2 meters wide, and 3 meters high. It can take 2 crew. It's built to work in and explore areas of the ocean as deep as 1,100 meters. Pisces 3 is purchased by British company Vickers Oceanics in 1971. Vickers Oceanics has the largest fleet of commercial submersibles with 9 subs and 5 support ships. The subs support the offshore oil industry, conducting surveys of the sites for new pipelines and underwater structures. They're used to inspect and maintain rig structures, pipelines, and wellheads. They find and recover lost equipment or photograph the condition of the underwater parts of drilling platforms. Manipulators are fixed to Pisces 3. These are mechanical arms that can have a variety of tools attached to them for gripping, cutting, sawing, drilling, and pumping. The tools can be changed while the sub is underwater. Originally, Pisces 3 is built with tail fins, but Vickers Oceanic removes the tail fins to improve access and handling. On Tuesday, the 28th of August 1973, Roger Mallinson spends the day repairing a broken manipulator on the submarine. During the repair, he changes the half-empty oxygen tank for a full one, even though the half-empty would have been sufficient for the next dive. Just good practice. After working day and night, pushing into the morning of the 29th of August, Roger Chapman and Roger Mallinson begin a routine dive at 01:15. They're working on laying a transatlantic telephone cable on the seabed. Their current position is 130 nautical miles southwest of Cork in Southern Ireland. Chapman is a former Navy submariner, and Mallinson is the engineer who rebuilt the submarine when it was received from Canada. Both men are highly experienced, and Mallinson knows the sub inside out. The job is scheduled to take 20 days, making 8-hour dives in the submersible. It takes about 40 minutes to reach the depth of 488 meters at the seafloor. Pisces 3 uses water jets to liquefy the mud, lay the cable, then cover it over again. It's difficult and exhausting work to stay focused in the near zero visibility. As they spray water jets at the mud, a cloud of silt kicks up and it's almost impossible to see further than the manipulator arm. The crew describe it like riding down a motorway in thick fog and trying to follow a white line. In order to see through the porthole window, the men kneel down with their heads between their knees. The porthole window faces forward and down towards the seabed in front of them so they can see the cables they're laying. They control the submersible in one hand and the manipulator in the other. It requires 100% concentration at all times. In order to avoid exhaustion, the pilots take turns and rotate positions frequently. Every 40 minutes, they scrub the air. They turn on a lithium hydroxide fan to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and also add additional oxygen to the cabin to keep the air breathable. If they don't scrub the air, carbon dioxide builds up in their chamber, which makes them lightheaded and weak. They also maintain a video log throughout every dive. After their 8-hour shift, the 2 men start their ascent. At 09:18, after a successful dive, the Pisces 3 reaches the surface. The 2 men hear the tow line being attached to the support ship Vickers Voyager. A voice through the radio notifies them that the tow line is now attached, but the message is quickly drowned out by a high-pitched whine. It's a sound that's familiar to Chapman and Mallinson. They've heard it before. It's the alarm in the aft sphere, a self-contained part of the submersible holding machinery and oil storage. Condensation has set off the alarm before. It usually stops as soon as it starts with nothing to worry about, so the men ignore it. But this time it stops and then the whining noise starts again, which isn't normal. The tow line has become entangled with the aft sphere and wrenched a hatch open. Chapman and Mallinson hear the sound of water rushing through the open hatch flooding the aft sphere with over a ton of water. Pisces 3 begins to tip backwards as the weight of the water destabilizes the sub. The sub slips below the waterline and Mallinson shouts to watch the depth. They're already 30 meters below the surface and descending rapidly. At 53 meters, the submersible jolts to a stop. The nylon tow line has arrested their descent. The submersible sways in the sea currents for several moments while the men gather their bearings. Then, with a loud crack, the rope snaps and the men plummet towards the seabed. As they descend, Mallinson and Chapman hear pieces of the sub breaking off. Loud cracking sounds echo in the tiny chamber they're locked in. They close down all the electrical systems, which leaves them in total blackness. Then they release a 400-pound lead ballast weight, which helps to slow their descent. They stuff their mouths full of cotton as they brace for impact. The cotton will reduce the chances of biting their tongues on impact. At 0930, Pisces 3 collides with the seafloor 488 meters deep, kicking up a cloud of silt. The sub remains intact. Chapman and Mallinson are still alive, but they're trapped in a 1.8 meter sphere at the bottom of the ocean. Using a flashlight, they get their bearings, then call their support ship to update them. At 0945, Mallinson and Chapman make radio contact with the Vickers Voyager above. They let them know they're okay and in good spirits. The full tank of oxygen has a capacity to last almost 72 hours, but 8 hours are already used, leaving 64 hours. The men know there's no vessel at the surface that can reach them. It'll take at least 2 days before any helpful equipment can be transported to the site. The men spend the first few hours getting organized and making plans to survive as long as they can. It's cold and wet and they have a limited supply of oxygen. To make matters worse, the sub is upside down. Now that the cloud of silt has settled, Mallinson shines the torch out of the porthole window, half hoping to see a rescue party already coming to save them. All he can see is the dimly lit beam of light disappearing into the darkness. Carbon dioxide is heavier than air, so the men lie at the top of the cabin to stay in good air. They lay completely still without speaking. By minimizing their movement, they're able to cut down on their oxygen usage. They have just a single sandwich and 1 can of lemonade. They also decide to allow the carbon dioxide in the air to build up beyond the normal 40 minutes to conserve oxygen, making them lethargic and drowsy. Vickers Voyager notifies the Royal Navy, US Navy, and Canadian Coast Guard of the emergency. They coordinate an emergency rescue plan. At 10:35, sister ship Vickers Venturer is in the North Sea when it gets an order to return to the nearest port with the submersible Pisces 2. At 1200, the Royal Navy survey vessel HMS Hecate steams to the accident location to offer assistance with special hoist ropes. The United States Navy offers a submersible belonging to the US Salvage Department called Curve 3, or Controlled Underwater Recovery Vehicle. It's loaded into an aircraft in California. Curve 3 is designed to pick up bombs from the seabed. After arriving in Swansea, it's loaded aboard the John Cabot, a Canadian Coast Guard ship. The John Cabot leaves port and sails towards the accident site. The next day, Thursday the 30th of August at 20:15, the Vickers Voyager arrives in Cork and loads the submersible Pisces 2 and Pisces 5, which are flown in overnight. By 22:30, the Vickers Voyager is loaded and headed back to the site. 3.5 hours after that, at 0200, Vickers Voyager reaches the location and launches Pisces 2 with a polypropylene rope attached. While descending, the lifting rope breaks free of the Pisces 2 manipulator arm and the rescue submersible has to return to the surface for repairs. Pisces 5 is put in the water for the next rescue attempt. The rescue sub makes it to the ocean floor with a polypropylene rope and snap hook. Pisces 3 has landed in a trench and is barely visible on the seafloor. Pisces 5 searches until its batteries run low. It returns to the surface without sighting Pisces 3. On its second dive at 12:44, Pisces 5 finds the crew. The crew on board the rescue sub attempt to attach the rope but can't connect it to Pisces 3. Pisces 5 now waits with Pisces 3. Pisces 2 goes back in the water but has to be brought back on board because of a leak. Curve 3 arrives on board the John Cabot. It's also unable to launch because of an electrical fault. At midnight going into Friday the 31st of August, Pisces 5 is ordered to return to the surface. It ascends and joins the other two disabled submersibles. With everything going wrong, the rescue team begins to lose hope for Chapman and Mallinson. The men have now been in the sub for 72 hours. Their window is closing and there's no submersible in a position to bring them to the surface. They're running out of both oxygen and the lithium hydroxide to scrub the carbon dioxide from the airspace in the submersible. Both men are cold, wet, and suffering from severe headaches. With the 72-hour oxygen limit on their minds, the rescue crew know they only have one last chance if it's not too late already. On Saturday, the 1st of September at 0402, Pisces 2 is deployed. An hour later, it reaches a sub and successfully attaches a purpose-built toggle and polypropylene tow rope to the aft sphere at the back of Pisces 3. But Mallinson isn't confident the lift will work. The aft sphere isn't the strong point. They're in the fore sphere and he's annoyed they aren't being lifted by that. He thinks it's the wrong decision. But the only way the rescue crew can attach a line is using the toggle. The device has two arms that open and close like an umbrella. The rescue crew insert the toggle through the open hatch of Pisces 3's flooded aft sphere. Once inside, the toggle arms are opened and locked in position. At 0930, Curve 3 begins a descent. At 10:35, it reaches Pisces 3 and manages to fasten another tow rope to the aft sphere of the stranded submersible, once again using the same type of custom-made toggle. When the second line's attached, Mallinson and Chapman share the sandwich and lemonade. There's no point to saving it now. At 10:50, the lift begins, and as soon as the sub lifts off the ocean floor, it starts swaying and spinning violently. Mallinson and Chapman are weak and disorientated. The spinning compounds their already severe headache. The rescue crew in Pisces 2 watch helplessly as Pisces 3 spins and jolts out of control. They wonder if the two men will even make it to the surface. At least they're off the seafloor and on their way up. The lift makes slow progress until the sub is 106 meters from the waterline when it comes to a stop. Curve 3 is tangled in the tow line. Pisces 2 helps to untangle Curve 3 and the lift continues until it reaches 30 meters. Divers attach heavier lifting cables to the submersible. At 13:17 on Saturday the 1st of September, Pisces 3 finally breaks the surface. To the rescue crew's relief, Chapman and Mallinson are still alive. Divers immediately try to open the hatch to allow fresh air into the submersible. Mallinson and Chapman are at the end of their oxygen supply. They've been spun and tossed violently during the lift, which has taken almost 3 hours. The pounding in their heads is at a fever pitch. And now the divers can't open the hatch. It's jammed shut from the impact with the seafloor. The rescue crew hoist Pisces 3 onto the deck of Vickers Voyager. It takes nearly 30 more minutes to open the hatch. Mallinson and Chapman struggle to leave the craft. They've been cramped inside for 84 hours and 30 minutes. They survived the deepest rescue from a submersible in history. Both men recover from the accident with only minor PTSD. Chapman goes on to become the leading authority on rescue submersibles and plays an instrumental role in rescuing the 7-man crew on the Russian submarine AS-28 Prince in 2005. Mallinson continues working with Vickers Oceanic for several years, restoring steam engines. He and Chapman stay in touch, meeting up every year until Roger Chapman dies at the age of 74 in January 2020. The full oxygen tank that Mallinson replaced in the sub almost 4 days before had approximately 12 minutes of oxygen left.